Hello, back on LinkedIn. I might send a copy of this to the Attorney General here in Canada, possibly The Hague. But just to as a point of example, there was one. It was some kind of environmental review panel and a review in the Senate or might have been Congress. I'm not exactly sure. But what's really important is the instance of someone mentioning uh, that carbon only becomes a human health risk at 25,000 parts per million. So it's still breathable air, you know. So, on the one hand, this appears to be something like an offhanded comment, but this is a part of process. So it's governmental process. And someone would mention something like that. Of course, you know exactly what that is as a statement in terms of atmospheric science and the effects. So that's far past. Now, how could we phrase this? You know, so there's all these people who are sort of implying social category towards extinction, but basically what that person is saying is a tenuous aspect of governmental process. 25,000 ppm. Pretty sure that was the number. That's a denigration ritual in some ways. It's not very extreme. It's a verbatim. It's not a direct act, physical. It's not a physical act against another person. But the decisive continuity would portend. If we're dropping the load, the cognitive channel, into a space where there's complete impossibility, sometimes, okay, so liminal, there's compression. It's so ridiculous, we don't know what to say. So there's no response, or it's just. But the person with Ponce and surfeit integrity mentioned that within an institution of the United States of America. So, interesting. All right, evolution and verification. So, the Max Planck Institute. So there's various physical phenomena that are a focus of coding, and then we end up with a visual. It's almost like it's almost like an analogy to that kind of work would be resolution. But really what it is it's looking at structure and movement. And so European institutions, I've found much more so, look at molecular aspects of atmospheric functionality. To verify, once you do something, so on this whole, the last post I made was talking about nanotechnology and how we're just going to fire it up, at some point, and it's all over the place. So the psychological effects of, attunement and a direct understanding of what nature is, because you're with that other life. It has a different feeling from someone who's decisive with military state, okay, or as an aspect of state. On the other hand, there's some way to verify. Someone who projects their biotic magnetic formation at altitude and listens, you see. And there's this whole other issue of thievery, right? If there's the positional attunement, then we can just have that for ourselves, regardless of our spiritual ontology and process. It's just something we can build and have. So it's very different. It doesn't have the wisdom. So you know, it doesn't have the wisdom. So it's a form of instigation with habeas. It's also, if you want to grow things to eat, then who do you pay? You see. So does it get in? If it's within the domain of what may or may not have been military or diplomatic coercion, and I don't know, but it's another form of verification. Does evolution exist? So augmented reality, yeah, for sure. Okay, forget it. All right. Social safeguards. So as we're having a transition and we're engaging with local communities in economic assistance or whatever the case may be, so if there's people buying and selling permissions in various aspects of IC or community or however it is, for how much, carbon, it certainly isn't $37 trillion worth of global investment in coal. One would learn that there's red lines in front of that quantity. So verify constitutional fidelity because carbon mixes ubiquitously. And so if there is an issue with global drought, then that's the timeline, happens everywhere. It's got to be both domestic fidelity and equanimity, probably not some kind of confusion about the difference between social cost, trillions upon trillions of dollars, and 600 billion defense budget. You're probably not going to make it back because you're not helping. Right? And the other thing was, obviously, if there's disruption and there's transition, who's dealing with the outflows of response? So we all pull it together and say, well, we'd like an energy transition. I don't think it happens on one meal a day. Anyway, if you'd like an email, it's probably there somewhere on the Ecopsychology site. There's a right way and a wrong way. People have said this before, but it's multiplicity and it's multidimensional, and it's also, what do they call that? Different countries. Multilateral. There's help, but it includes caring about people. If it's a continuity that is the most first and includes, we want to have it at value for all the exchanges, some people trade every single exchange in existence, aggregate, but that's vectors. That's not decisiveness. So get it together. If you've got an extra $500, I'll tell you, one meal a day doesn't cut it.